Day two of the Jonathan Majors trial has wrapped up, and we have six jurors and two alternates selected. Let's do a roundup of the key details, and then we'll go over some discussion points. So, as a roundup of key details, what we found out today, opening statements are going to start on Monday. Six jurors were chosen, three men, three women, two alternates were chosen, one man, one woman. There are no black men in the jury panel, but there are four people of color. There was also a ruling on an evidentiary issue where the press was not in the room for, but it lasted about 20 minutes, it seems. When the press was able to come back in, the defense seemed to be in good spirits. Jonathan Majors and one of the lawyers on his side were smiling. And then we also found out that the judge decided the arrest can be brought up, but the prosecution's welcome to challenge the motive behind the arrest. So that's a quick summary. Let's jump into the full roundup. And Elizabeth Rosner and Glenn Garner are giving us this rundown here of what happened today. They're writing for the messenger. The messenger here is confirming that one of the potential 39 jurors was an actor by the name of Jewel Vasquez. Correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But mostly a familiar face from The Sopranos and some other shows. But during questioning, Vasquez expressed concerns about judging another person, noting that someone would do that to me one day. Majors could be heard reacting with an audible, and then that's a picture of him here, so maybe you recognize him. Shout out if you recognize him. Additionally, Jonathan Majors was seen taking notes on the yellow legal pad and then gently kissed Megan Good in the courtroom right before she had to go and sit in, the gallery seat where non-parties can sit. And then the messenger gives us some insight here that one of the questions Priya Chaudhry asked was, can all of you promise that you can presume that Mr. Majors is innocent, even though he's a celebrity? And all the potential jurors said yes. And then we've got confirmation again that opening statements are scheduled to begin next week on Monday, with Jabbari set to testify at some point next week. And then we've got reporting from some of our boots on the ground. So we'll go through them through their threads. So remember, they're going to overlap a little bit. But here, Ben lets us know that Jonathan Majors stood up to introduce himself, clasped his hands together, nodded, pressed his left hand over his heart. So he's engaging with the jurors. Ben observed Majors making eye contact with several of the jurors and maybe even giving a half smile, but was still looking solemn. And early this morning, three prospective jurors had expressed concerns that they couldn't be impartial after seeing the video that you may have seen already of Grace Jabbari dancing in the club some hours after the alleged assault took place. And then we've got Ben observing that, once again, Majors is note taking. Although he knows at this point that the trial is expected to last 2 weeks, we do have this update right at the bottom. Oi, the judge in the Jonathan Majors trial just announced that opening statements won't be today after all. They will start Monday morning instead. And we have this context here about Joel Vasquez, and he noted that he has serious problems with anyone who commits violence against women. You do with that information what you will, and then later promised that he could be fair. But we've already seen he's going to be stricken. And then we'll hop over to Emily Palmer's coverage we saw from her yesterday, and this picture is actually from yesterday here. But she describes Jonathan Majors walking in, and they go in, they leave pretty quickly to come right back outside of the courtroom. She observes that Jonathan Majors has exchanged his notebook and Bible for a laminated binder, enters the court at 10:15 a.m. for a decision in the hearing that the judge believed was so potentially inflammatory that he closed it to the public, including Megan Good. So we got this video of them walking in here. That close hearing was resolved at 10:35 a.m., so it didn't take that long. And Emily notes that there was laughter coming from Jonathan Major's table, and big smiles from him and his legal team, suggesting that the ruling went in his favor. And then she details the jurors coming in, Jonathan Majors greets them, and then we see again that a slew of women say they've seen that video of Grace Jabbari dancing in the bar. That questioning whether or not they could be impartial in this case. Another woman said she suffered DV, and Emily notes that both Majors and Megan Good shook their heads sympathetically with this woman. Then Jonathan Majors and Megan Good leave hand in hand. And you can hear someone asking, like, how'd they rule on the evidence issue? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Seth, please answer. And then we get a bit more context here around that Jewel Vasquez line. Emily says here that the two actors shared a moment after Jewel said he feared judging another and that someone would do that to me one day. Majors hummed his agreement. Jill added, "That's probably a conversation for my shrink." And then Emily's final update for the day is that jurors have just been selected. That was at 4:32 p.m. 6 jurors, 2 alternates, 3 women, 3 men, 1 female alternate, 1 male alternate. No black men selected for the jury. 4 of the jurors are people of color. And even though we're done with Emily's thread, she did a write-up that's giving us a peek at tomorrow. And I like the way she writes this. She says, "Today I sat right behind Megan Good. Tomorrow we'll be having some behind-the-scenes stuff. Megan says she's coming to court. Me too." So Emily's going to be there. And remember, she's writing for people. And this details kind of what we've also seen from Elizabeth Rosner writing for The Messenger on Jonathan Majors and Megan Good's relationship leading up to the trial. And now that trial has commenced, we've seen some synchronicity with how they're engaging with the jurors as described by Emily, who's in the court. And it says here that the actor is on trial for an 8-count indictment for assault and harassment. And Emily notes the show of solidarity playing out repeatedly. About Good's support, a source who knows the couple tells people Jonathan's challenging period has further solidified their relationship. The actress, 42, has become a fixture in the courtroom, favoring a reserved seat in the first row behind Majors. The couple, who has been dating since the spring, got together a short time after Grace Jabbari accused Majors of physically assaulting her in Chinatown this March. Megan's courage and resilience have been an unwavering source of support for him, the source adds. When they're not holding hands, Majors cups Good's back as they walk in and out of the courtroom, standing aside to let her pass ahead through the doorways, where reporters and photographers are queued just outside. Thursday, they kissed in the court before Majors made his way to the defense table. We learn here that Majors actually assigned a post-it to each of the 39 potential jurors to spread over the folder he had with him. And luckily, they note some of the pre-trial discussions here. So today, Thursday, Judge Michael Gaffey referenced Jabbari's October arrest, which the defense said in court they plan to use to discredit her as a reliable accuser. There was an investigation done, the judge said of prosecutors' depiction of Jabbari's arrest, and she had nothing to do with that investigation, and it was dismissed. Good shook her head at the characterization. The defense team has also alleged in court that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has treated Jabbari, a white woman, with preferential benefits in the case. Both actors watched potential jurors carefully, as one by one the panelists introduced themselves by names and answered a set of biographical questions posed by the judge. One prospective juror, a white woman who works with the Innocence Project, shout out to the Innocence Project, said she had concerns about weighing allegations by white women against black men, given the problematic history of the way such accusations are processed through the legal system. Yes, said Good, rolling her eyes from her seat in the second row. I can picture it. Several women considered for the jury told the judge they'd seen the videos of Jabbari dancing in the club shortly after the alleged abuse took place, and that based on those videos and related news coverage, they did not think they could be impartial. Then, a white woman living in the Upper West Side said she had been a victim of domestic violence. Both Majors and Good, who returned, shook their heads somberly. Later, when the woman said her daughter had been sexually abused, Good shut her eyes. The woman said that given her experiences, she could not believe she could judge fairly in this case. And that's understandable. I mean, we're getting just these little snippets from the jurors. There's a lot to unpack about that. I mean, the Innocence Project is a huge program that works to exonerate. A lot of their exonerations are based on revisiting DNA evidence, but a lot of the people they help exonerate are men, black men. Not exclusively, but predominantly. And it's a great organization. Like, I give pocket change to them when I can. And if you are interested in innocence and justice, things like exonerations, you should give them a follow. They have several local sub-brands within the Innocence Project. So, like, for example, there's a Jacksonville, Florida one. And I think there's like a Tampa one. There's also the main Innocence Project. So if this is something that interests you, check out the Innocence Project. Shout out to them. And then last is from updates from journalists and people that are boots on the ground at the court. We have from Vickie B. She writes for Vulture, so shout out to them. And she notes bright and early at the 100 Center Street Courthouse. Proceedings are supposed to start at 10. The judge, who wiped his ass with the First Amendment yesterday and keeping evidentiary hearing closed and papers under wraps over press objections, is expected to decide on admissibility of evidence. Then they'll get to jury selection. And she goes on to say, "I'm sorry, if you can't conduct voir dire, In a way that gets a fair and impartial jury, it's because you're probably not a good judge. It ain't the press's fault. And she ties in what's going on with the YSL, the Young Thug RICO trial. If you're not up to speed on that, there was a big panic yesterday because a video apparently panned and showed some faces of the jurors. And there's a link. It doesn't work. I know the lead attorney is doing like live streams of the Young Thug trial. It's really the YSL RICO case. It's not just Young Thug. Law and Crime has it streaming if you don't want commentary. But lead attorney is very sharp. He's funny. He's very entertaining. He'll easily explain what's going on if something's happening really fast. So shout out to the lead attorney. We've got Victoria being a goofball here. She said some predictions for jury selection. You're going to have at least one juror who says they listen to the Joe Rogan podcast. Court officers open the windows and now it smells like Washington Square Park in the courtroom, aka weed. I bet that's valid. Then press is kicked out for that evidentiary hearing. Judge says that they've resolved the evidentiary issue. We saw that was like 20 minutes from the other article. The court will no longer be closed. They're going to be bringing in the jury. We have not been told anything on the record about the decision, just that there was a decision on an evidentiary issue. Victoria notes that Majors seems to be in good spirits. Majors was smiling, and one of his lawyers also had a pleased look. The Bible and cup are spotted on the table. Oh. So this was actually confusing from the People article. Judge decides that defense can bring up Jonathan Majors' accuser's arrest, which prosecutors said they wouldn't prosecute and did not. But told prosecutors they could go into lots of detail and challenging motivations for her arrest, like months later. So that's going to be an interesting back and forth. I wish we could see that part. Finally, some movement. Prospective jurors enter the courtroom. My powers of observation aren't infallible, but I didn't see any looks of recognition towards Majors. So typical, they go through, medical issues. Can you sit for 2 weeks? Because remember yesterday, Priya Chaudhry was like, we can only have 2 alternates. Oh no. So, going on for 2 weeks or more, you want to make sure that someone isn't likely to really need to be out of there and have some type of emergency where they can't sit for the 2 weeks of the trial, especially when there's only 2 alternates. And Victoria says all 3 women that said they saw that video, all 3 of them said no, they cannot be impartial. It's pretty slow moving, but the anti-press judge, in telling a juror about not reading coverage, made another dig at media. What you read, quote, many times it's accurate, many times it's inaccurate, end quote. LOL, what's this guy's problem? So there you have it. By the way, I've had that header forever, but there's a Good Burger 2 movie out right now. So that's a roundup there of everything that went on in court today. On Monday, we're going to have a lot more going on. We're going to have opening statements, but we are getting decent coverage. We're getting good quotes. We're getting good insight on, even though we don't know the decision that was made today about the evidentiary issue, we know that there was a positive reaction to it from one side. So I'll keep doing these roundup videos to get you guys caught up to speed. But if you're comfortable using X, if you're on X, hop over there because I'll do updates in a quicker manner. You should also give any of these reporters that are on the ground, give them a follow for quick updates. I'm happy to do the work to compile and blend everything together, but this is really coming from them. Tomorrow might be kind of like a housekeeping day. We'll see. But some talking points. I mean, what do you think about the one juror saying, hey, I don't know, I'm an actor too. I wonder if this could happen to me at some point. And I know it's a small sample size, but all 3 people that said they saw this video of Grace Jabbari dancing in the club and felt biased, felt like they couldn't be fair or impartial because of it, were women. And that's only 3 people, right? So that just happens to be the 3 that saw it. But I know I saw that video, and obviously if I was on that, they probably wouldn't even let me in the room today. They would have been like, you know too much, you gotta go. And I promise I try to be impartial, but no matter how impartial you are, you're still not supposed to see things that are not actually admitted in trial. So, for example, if you've watched one of my video roundups, if you've looked at all the things that we've gone through with the motion to dismiss, the letter that Priya Chaudhry sent to the prosecutors, the email, being aware of some of those things, if those things aren't brought up or admissible to the jury, you shouldn't be a juror. So that's another food for thought. It's confirmed now, even though I'm sure this isn't a surprise anymore, but Grace Jabbari is testifying next week, apparently. What do you think about the judge allowing the arrest to come in? The arrest was something that Priya and Seth and everyone that prepared that motion to dismiss really focused on. The whole process of how the arrest went down that day with the officers being present and potentially coaching Grace Jabbari, how the NYPD had probable cause to arrest Grace Jabbari, but the DA was kind of mixing in and saying, no, no, there's nothing going on, and possibly conferring benefit for her to come to testify in this case, which all of that's supposed to be disclosed. There's no way around that. That's, New York State code. It's the prosecution's duty. That's why if you watched my video yesterday, the prosecutor, in my opinion, but also by some code, are supposed to be the most transparent party in that room. So what do you think about the judge's decision to allow the defense to bring up the arrest during the course of the trial? The jury is going to get to hear that. And the judge explicitly stated that the prosecution can challenge that back. I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts that can bubble around that, but in my opinion, I think that would be one of the most interesting parts of testimony because Grace Jabbari is going to have to answer these things. It's not going to be you get to say something and walk away from it. You're going to be cross-examined. You're going to be hammered by Priya Chaudhry, who seems like a little bulldog. And what do you think about Megan Good sitting in the courtroom? I mean, there's a few sides to that, right? Like on one hand, I would want someone I cared about to be present supporting me. So that would help me if they were present supporting me. On the other, there's the appearance of how that looks to everyone else in the courtroom. And then beyond that, there's also, if Grace Jabbari was sending these jealous text messages, and this text message that sparked this whole fight could have been from Megan Good, like, is that going to be in her mind? I don't see how it could not be in her mind, but how impactful could that be while Grace Jabbari has to sit there and testify? So what do you think about all that? Like, I know there's people that have said Megan Good is there for the press, the PR, the public, but focus in and think about in the courtroom, the dynamic, her presence, what it means for majors, the rest of the courtroom, what it means for Jabbari while she's testifying. But that's what I've got for today. I appreciate everyone that's doing these updates and, especially everyone that's tagging me in news, in commentary. It's always so much more interesting to look at things together and piece things together and kind of see the whole picture, see where there's gaps, see where there's questions, because that's really where you can start analyzing and start having a conversation and a discussion. So I enjoy it. I appreciate everybody, and I hope I can see you guys next time.